Hello, so I'm going to do a tutorial on how to create a rock using photogrammetry data. A lot of this is quite straightforward and it's stuff that I've done before in other videos. A lot of it is just about you being able to use things like 3ds Max and Photoshop. So these videos are going to be more about the workflow that I've found works for this, as opposed to a step-by-step process of exactly how to do it. So the software that I'm going to use is called 12-3D Catch. It's a free bit of software by Autodesk, so you can go and download it. There's loads of tutorials on their site about how to use it that are much better than any tutorial I'm going to do. So it's really straightforward, but if you have any difficulties, I suggest you just go and follow a few tutorials. The first thing you're going to need to do when you're creating a photogrammetry rock is to go and take some photos. Okay, so this is what we're going to be creating. We're going to make this rock here, so this should be the end result that you get. The only thing that's at all tricky about this really is making this under surface, this bottom surface here, because obviously when we took the photos we couldn't take photos of what it looked like underneath. This is a pretty big rock. Certainly it'd probably need about, I don't know, like 50 people to lift it or something, so we're not going to be able to lift it up and take photos of the underside. So there's some tips on how to take these photos on the 12-3D Catch website. Basically take a load of photos from do a ring around the object as low down as you can, and then do another ring around the object from a kind of top down ish sort of, maybe, I don't know, 60-degree angle or something like that. So I'll just quickly show you the photos that I took to do this rock. So I've just gone round the side of it like that, and then I've gone round from a bit more of a top-down angle like that. Then I've loaded it into 12-3D Catch. This is what I got from that. So it automatically created this just by loading the photos in. Now you need to do some cleanup on this. There's areas like this that have obviously come out really badly. I'm not going to go through how to clean that up because it's all on there's tutorials on the 12-3D Catch website. Once you've done that, you're going to want to chop out anything with this lasso tool so that you've just got the rock left, and obviously do this neater than I'm doing it now. I'd say the more careful you are doing this step and chopping the rock out, the better your result will be. Or the easier it'll be to sort out the rest in 3ds Max. So once you've done that, you can just file, export the capture and export it as an FBX, and then you can load that into 3ds Max. Okay, so this is what you'll get into 3ds Max. You'll get your rock, and if you've saved it as an FBX, you'll get all these cameras as well showing you where the pictures are taken of. So first thing we can do is just select the bits of rock, and then if we select the invert of that, we can delete all of those cameras so that we've just got our rock. And you'll see that this rock is in this case it's in 3 little pieces. So each of these has got a different texture. The texture that's on this at the moment, things like the UVs, will be completely unusable. I can probably just actually have a look quickly at the UVs so you can see what it looks like. So this is the unwrap that it's done automatically for us, and obviously it's not usable because it's not using up the space in 0 to 1 at all. So forget about that unwrap. What we need to do is make this one object to start with, so we'll just grab one of them and attach the other pieces. We want to keep the material IDs separated so that it's still got the correct texture on. The next thing we want to do is, we've obviously got a seam here now where there were 2 objects, so we need to make sure that we weld all of that seam together. So you can just grab all of the verts and just do, sorry, let's just convert that to an editable poly first, then select all of the verts, and we can just do a weld at a very low threshold, maybe like this. I think that's probably all the seams that have been welded there, so just make sure you don't weld anything other than the seams. And I've got a few straggly bits here, so let's get rid of those. And now it's all one element, so that's what we wanted. Okay, what we need to do is start thinking about fixing up this bottom piece here, putting something in where we've got this gap where obviously the ground was. So the way that I've been doing that is it's a complete sort of hack, this, so it's not, you know, it's not a incredibly accurate way of doing it, but it actually seems to work fine and gives pretty good results. What I'm going to do is I'm going to select the top, and I'm basically just going to copy that and put it on the bottom. So just try and grab the top and nothing else. The spray tool can be quite useful here, just to get rid of these bits around the edge. So again, do this neater than I'm doing it. I'm just showing the workflow that I'm using. So I'll get rid of that until I'm happy that I've just got the bit that I want. That'll do for now. And then I'm going to copy that down to the bottom. So I'm going to clone it as a new object. And then I'll just center my pivot, and I will mirror that in Z, just so I'm just flipping it upside down now so that it's facing the right way up. Okay, now I need to place it as best I can in the correct area to fill this hole. Something like that. So again, be a bit more precise than I'm being, but you get the idea. And now I'm going to just go into vert mode, and I'm going to turn on soft selection like this, and just set that up in the right place, and then I'll start to try and move these as close as I can to be in exactly the right place. Oops, that's the wrong one. Okay, that'll do for now. You obviously want to try and get it so that there really isn't too much of a gap in between. And just be careful you're not stretching the texture too much or any of that kind of thing. Okay, once we've done that, we can attach all of this together again. Let's turn soft selection off. So now this is just one object. Another thing we want to do is, you can probably see this, but this isn't in a smoothing group, so everything kind of looks jaggy. So let's just select everything and put it all into one smoothing group, just to stop us from getting any problems with that. Then now is probably a good time to decide where we want this to sit. So just center it. Thinking about where the pivot's going to be once we put this into a game. So I'm just centering it on this main pivot line here. And then I can center the pivot. I can reset the X form. All of that stuff. Make sure we don't get any problems with that. Okay, now I'll duplicate it off to the side. And what I need to do is I'm going to use a Pro Optimizer to reduce this down so for our low poly, and then I'm going to unwrap that. But before I do that, what I need to do is just to make sure that I put everything into one material ID. So there'll be 3 material IDs on it at the moment because it imported as 3 separate objects, all with their own UVs and stuff. So you can see once I put that into one material ID, it breaks the texture. So I should put a blank texture on that because we don't need any texture on this low poly. And then we can use a Pro Optimize. So Pro Optimizer, we can calculate that, and let's bring it down to maybe 2% of our original vertex count, and that looks pretty high. So I think we need that many verts. Let's just bring this down further. And you can decide how low or high poly you want. The way I've been creating these is to create them, make them quite high poly, maybe around where this one is now, maybe a little bit lower than that. But basically just keep on coming down until you think that the silhouette and the form of it starts to deteriorate. And as soon as that happens, so around here, if you look at this area here, somewhere around there, the form's definitely starting to get lost a little bit. And around here, we're starting to lose that kind of the look of that curve. So just keep on going around. It's quite important to get this right and just to find a nice balance between it being low poly. Like I say, the way I've been doing it is to keep them fairly high, so a vertex count of maybe 300-400, maybe even a little bit more, and then just creating LODs for them in the game with another Pro Optimize, which is simple to do. Once you're happy with that, you can collapse that down, and now what we need to do is zip this up. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go around and I'm going to, the one thing you need to do is this, the one big thing you need to think about with this part of it is this element here, the bottom surface, is the one that we can change. We don't want to mess with any of this because we have a perfect thing to bake down from with that, because this is all the original data that we brought in. This isn't the original data. This is something that we've made a copy of. So this is where we're going to kind of hack it together a bit. So try not to mess too much with the verts on this, and instead just weld the verts up from this side. So you can either weld them together if there isn't much of a gap, or occasionally you might want to do like a bridge or something. Occasionally you might want to just delete some of these as well. So let's bridge that one, let's cap that one. Maybe we'll bridge this. Occasionally you might need to, do some cuts and stuff, so maybe I'll need to do a cut in here so that I've got something to weld that to. So this process will maybe take 10-15 minutes or something if you're doing it fairly carefully. But again, just make sure you kind of weld the bottom surface to the sides rather than kind of target welding that to that, for example. Instead, if you're going to do that, do it that way. I mean, obviously if I've got a big gap like this, what I'd probably do is bridge it like that. Okay, so I'll zip this up and then come back. Okay, so I've zipped that up and made it just one complete object. Just make sure you haven't got any holes in it, and do some checks that all of your verts are welded and all that sort of stuff. Once we've done that, we need to unwrap it. What we need to do when we're unwrapping to make life a lot easier is to try and not put any seams around here where we've stitched this part. The reason we don't want a seam there is because our normal map is going to give us a load of difficulty here, and we're going to have to clone in some normal map from somewhere else. If we haven't got a seam there, then we should be able to do that without too many problems. If we have got a seam there, then we'll never make the normal map look like it's attached together. Whereas here we're alright because the normal map should stay fairly synced on this seam because we actually have all the data leading up to that edge and leading down to that. Hopefully that makes sense. If it doesn't, then just trust me, keep the seams at the top. So let's unwrap it quickly. I've actually already unwrapped this one, so let's just do it again. I think the easiest way to do this, just plane and map the whole thing, then go round, get your seam wherever you want it, like this. Do this a lot more carefully than I'm doing. I'm just kind of guessing where this seam could go. I'm trying to chop the top off, so I'm probably not really doing a great job at this, but oh well. Okay, so select that edge across the top, and then we can just detach that. So now we've got this in two pieces. That's our top part, that's our bottom part. Let's just plane project onto that bottom part again, and now let's just cut some seams down the side. Again, find a good place to cut this seam. I'm just doing it really quickly without really paying much attention to it. I'm just going to cut 4 seams down the side. So I'm just unwrapping it a bit like you'd unwrap a box, I guess. Okay, that'll do. So let's detach those, and then we can just relax all this out like that. Okay, this is actually the trickiest part now, once that's relaxed, or I think it's the trickiest part. We kind of need to keep our UVs like they are. I don't really want to chop them up anymore, because so I don't want to cut this part off, for example, down here, because it'll make it really hard for us to create a seamless normal map if we do that. So you just need to pack this somehow into 0 to 1 without chopping it up any further. And this is the bit, well, this bit's kind of annoying because usually you're not going to be able to get a very good pack. It's not going to, we're going to waste quite a lot of UV space. So maybe something like this. You can see we just got all this unused UV space here and here, which isn't ideal at all, but there's not an awful lot we can do about it. Okay, once that's done, we've got our, let me just take that off so I can show you this process. We've got our unwrapped low poly that we've just made, and we've obviously got this high poly which has got this big gaping hole in it where we've just kind of done our best to stick the top onto the bottom. If you really wanted to spend a whole load of your life doing something really boring, then it would probably be better to go onto this high poly and kind of zip it up there and get this as close to as you possibly could to, you know, get this seam right up against the other seam and weld it all together there. It's just going to take forever to do that, but that would be a more accurate way of doing this, and you would get a better normal map around that area. But I'm not going to do that because honestly that's just too much effort. Okay, so we'll get a low poly, stick it one sec. Stick it on top of the high poly, and then we're just going to bake. So let's put a projection modifier on. We want to project from this high poly. I usually put this shaded thing on so I can see what I'm doing a bit better. Push the cage out so it's encompassing most of it. Don't worry about areas like this that are sticking out, because we just, you know, obviously this all around here is going to be a mess, and we're going to have a seam that we're going to have to fix. So don't worry about that. Once you've done that, let's go and save that somewhere. Make a new folder in there. New rock. And we want to, I'm going to leave my pad, well, I'm going to set my padding to about 8. Make sure you turn projection mapping on, and we want to bake a normal map, so just add a normal map and add a diffuse map. And I'm going to do them at 2K, and I'm going to render them out. Okay, so obviously you're going to get all of these errors around where this seam is. Other than that, actually this looks okay to me. So yeah, don't worry about all this red around here. We know we're going to get that. If you've got little red spots anywhere else, then just push cage out a little bit more to get rid of those. And let's go over to Photoshop. Okay, so I've got my normal map and I've got my diffuse map in Photoshop, and all I'm going to do is I'll start with my normal map. I'll duplicate that layer. Let's just save this as a PSD, so we'll call that new rock normal, and we'll do one for the diffuse, so we'll call that new rock, or the albedo map if you want to call it the albedo map. And I've loaded my rock into Marmoset 2 as well, so that I can kind of see what I'm doing. So let's just load in our textures. Okay, so I'll put my normal map into there, and I just need to flip the Y. So you can see that's working pretty nicely. Obviously we've got all these problems down here, but the seam at the top isn't so bad. You're actually better off probably baking this in X normal. That's what I did. I just couldn't be bothered to show that process in this video. But if you want to bake it through X normal instead, I think you get a bit of a more synced normal map at the top. So let's load that in. Let's load in our diffuse map as well. Let's get rid of some of this gloss and speck for the moment. Okay, so we're getting there already with this. What we need to do is fix these areas where the red is. So I'm just going to take my diffuse off for the moment and sort out my normal map first. And this is really hacky, and there'll probably be people that are like seething watching me do this, because it's not something you should really do. But I'm just going to take the clone stamp tool, and I'm going to stamp out, clone and stamp out that seam in the, well, that great big area of red in the normal map. Again, do this a little bit neater than I'm doing now, but you'll see this is why it was really important that we didn't put a seam in our UVs down this part, because this would be an absolute nightmare trying to fill in this. Even if you use something like Mudbox to paint it in 3D, if you've got a UV seam there, you'll never ever fix that. You're always going to get a really nasty normal map, nasty seam in your normal map. However, if we don't have a UV seam there, you'll be surprised at how well we can hide it. So let's just save that, go back to there, and there we go. I think one thing, it looks as though this rock isn't all in one smoothing group for some reason. Just see if I can fix that. Okay, I don't know why that was doing that. I've just created a new scene in Marmoset and it seems to be fine now. But anyway, you can see that this is where we've now cloned and stamped our normal map along this seam round here, and it looks alright. It's really not that bad at all. So you can now just do the same with your diffuse map. this is actually a little bit harder to do. It might take you a little bit longer, unless you do it really messily like I'm doing it now, but don't, because you'll see that this doesn't look too great. You'll also need to go through and obviously sort out things like where this there's bits of grass in it and stuff like that. But then we can stick that on. Okay, so that's that done. We also need to think about what we're going to do with these areas here. So this area here, when I took the photograph, it was just really in shadow. Even though I took the photographs on a day that didn't have any sun or anything, this was very hidden. So what I would do with that area in here is I'd probably clone and stamp some of it maybe out of one of these areas, except I'd do it carefully so that I don't completely kill the look of it. But do something like that. That's going to look better than what it was before. Again, you know, when I was doing this properly, I maybe spent half an hour or something doing this diffuse rather than the 30 seconds I'm spending now. Okay, so we're almost there kind of with this. Let's just duplicate that layer now, and the next thing that I'll do is we're doing like a physically based texture, so we want to get rid of any of the light and shadow that we possibly can, really. So I'm going to use image adjustments, shadows and highlights, and I'm going to try and just get rid of as much of that shadow and highlight as I possibly can, and just even the texture out as best I can. So I don't want to completely destroy the texture by doing something like this, but I could maybe keep this radius really low, something like that, and same with the highlights, and you can see the colours are balancing out much better now. Okay, so I'll probably tweak that for a bit longer, but that'll do for now. So we've just taken it from this to this. This is kind of would be okay as a sort of old-fashioned diffuse map, but if we're doing stuff that's physically based, this is more kind of like an albedo map that's just some color values. You might even want to increase the saturation a bit, and I don't know, maybe tweak that a little and get some even more color out of this. So let's save that. Okay. So the last thing that I'll do with this texture, I'm not actually completely happy with how I've changed that. What I might do for now is just decrease the opacity a little bit, just so that I've got a bit of the original coming through. It's maybe better. And the last thing that I'm going to do is, when I was out taking photographs, I also took some photographs of textures. So took some photos like this to use for textures, and then I've just gone into Photoshop and fixed those up into nice tiling textures. So I think I'm going to use a bit of this one. What I would actually do is maybe take this texture here, resize it, and maybe use it for some of the areas like this. So I can just copy it around. I'll fix these seams up in a second. And then maybe I'd get one that I had of this plain lichen rock, get that and copy that into some areas as well. Let's merge those, and merge those. Stamp this in. Maybe have some of that there. Okay, so not very accurately done, but again, this is something that you'd want to spend a bit of time doing. So just overlay some textures, and then you can set those to be an overlay.
So that's it with 0 opacity, and then I'm just overlaying a bit of that texture like that, and it just brings back some of the detail that we lost when we were removing our highlights and shadows. The same with that one. Maybe I'll desaturate that a little bit to get rid of that green colour, and obviously I'd want to sort of blend these together properly, like with my eraser or something, maybe like that. So obviously I'm doing this really quickly. This would you know, this whole process would take me hours to do it neatly on one of the rocks, but that's without the overlays, and that's with these overlays on, so you can just balance this wherever you want it. Okay, without the overlays and with the overlays, let's save that. And that's it for the diffuse texture. It's not looking too bad at all. And the good thing about this is that we can move our lights around it, and we've lost any semblance of that that thing of the light falling in a certain place when we took the photographs. So obviously when you take photographs, make sure it's on a cloudy, overcast day. If it's in bright sunshine, this is just going to be a nightmare to do. You can use like polarizing filters and all that sort of stuff. I didn't, but then I'm not really a big photography guy, so if you're into photography, I'm sure you'll be able to get these photographs better than I did. Again, using tripods and stuff, all that's going to make life easier. Okay, so we could also, I would maybe use Endo now with my normal map, and I want to use a preset. Bake out a cavity map and a ambient occlusion map. So let's get a cavity map, and let's overlay that. And we're making, you know, remember we're making an albedo texture here technically, so don't, you know, technically you shouldn't really have any AO in this, it should be in a separate channel, but I've been making these rocks for game engines, and I think you still want a little bit of AO and cavity. It's just a lot subtler than we maybe would have done it before, so get my AO as well. And I usually use a colour burn on the AO, and I'm gonna bring that right down to maybe only sort of 15% opacity. Okay, so that's the cavity and the AO on and off, and you can see I'm using it really subtly on this. So let's save that. It just gives it a little bit more shape. Okay, the last thing we need to do is create a roughness map. So let's bring those all into a diffused layer. Let's duplicate that and call that rough. We don't want any AO or any of that stuff on our roughness map. Let's merge all of those layers together and just get rid of any saturation, because that should be black and white map. Then I'm going to use my shadows and highlights again, and I'm going to really try and completely kill the shadows and highlights for my roughness map, or try and get this kind of more grainy detail out of it, like so. Okay, then what I want to do is to get the some kind of reference chart for PBR textures. So I'm using this reference chart from Quixel, and it's telling me that my microsurface or my roughness should be about this value here for rock. Maybe my albedo needs to be a bit lower as well to match that, so I'd probably want to level out my albedo with that if it isn't already.
Let's just fill a layer with that for now. Okay, so I want my roughness to be somewhere around here. The value of that is about 49. So I could just take this now and go to my levels and bring that down to 14. So that would be 49 at my output levels. Let's just put our roughness somewhere around there. Definitely have some areas that are a bit more glossy. Okay, so that's kind of in the correct range. And the other thing I'm going to do with this is on rock you always get these little crystals and minerals and stuff in them. So I'm just going to create a new layer and fill that with black, and I'm just going to create some noise. So filter, render, not render, noise, add noise. Let's bring the amount down, like to, I don't know, 2% maybe. Maybe something like that. And let's just alter our level so that's a little bit sharper. You just need to fiddle around with this until you get some little specks of light. Something like that. Probably not too bad. And then we can just do that as a screen over the top. Okay, so we've got these little specks that are like really glossy bits where you just got these little kind of minerals and crystals that catch the light. So once we've done that, let's get that and stick it into our alpha channel. So we've got our diffuse in our RGB channels and our roughness in our alpha channel. Save that, go back to Marmoset 2, and now we can load that into our gloss. So it's that diffuse, and we want to use the alpha channel. And let's use a metalness map instead of a specular map. So let's just turn our metalness down to 0. And that's it really. So as we move the light across, you can see it catches these little crystals in the rock every now and again. And if you look at rock in the light, that's kind of what you get. So it's a bit of a hacky way of doing it, but at kind of a glance in a game, I think it works really nicely. Obviously you wouldn't really be like this in the game. You'd maybe be viewing the rock from here. So every now and again you just get these little sparkles that come out of it like that. Okay. Last thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to take that sparkly layer off my roughness map, and then I'm going to use that roughness map, stick it into my normal map, and grab Endo 2 and just convert that into a normal map. I'm using the medium standard preset here. You can play around and try some of the other presets. I'm just going to get a little bit of noise to overlay on my normal map. Okay, there we go. And I'll probably just use the small detail, I think, on this, because I just want some of these little kind of creases and stuff. So let's take that and put it in our normal map and just overlay it a bit. Okay, so I've just overlaid that extra bit of detail. Maybe bring the opacity down a little. Okay, so that just gives us a little bit more surface detail. That's it, I think.
we can try this in different lights, maybe quickly, to see what it looks like on a different day. I think my albedo texture needs a little bit more work, and it needs to be a bit darker overall, I think, as well. But given that's taken about, what, 40 minutes to do that, obviously if you spend, I'd say it takes about 3 hours to do one of these a bit more carefully and a bit more properly. But I think that's a decent result for the time that it's taken. And hopefully that shows you the workflow that I've been using to create these rocks. So good luck with it and have fun making rocks.